Lisa Donlin, acquitted in husband's death, speaks out. Anchorage, Alaska. Lisa Donlin walked out of jail Tuesday evening as a free woman for the first time after being held and tried in the October 2010 death of her husband. But she says she wasn't sure what the jury's decision would be. A Palmer jury acquitted Donlin Tuesday of charges including second-degree murder, manslaughter, and criminally negligent homicide after she shot Jason Donlin 5 times while he slept. Her defense attorney says the jury found she acted in self-defense and that Jason Donlin tortured, kidnapped, and raped Lisa Donlin over 3 days. Donlin says she prayed for a verdict in her favor, then waited to see what it was. "I left it in God's hands," Donlin said Wednesday afternoon in an interview with Channel 2. Donlin says she doesn't remember what she thought before pulling the trigger. She says Jason had just raped her and threatened to kill the couple's 3 children. "He said he would start taking my children out as they came home from school," Donlin said, "and that he would finish off with me." Donlin thinks she'll spend Wednesday evening with her 3 boys, who are now 11, 13, and 15, eating pizza and watching movies. It will be the first time she's seen them outside of jail in more than 2 years. "We're just going to hang out, watch some TV, eat some pizza, and hug, be a family," Donlin said. Donlin says the first thing she did after being released was go out to dinner and order lasagna, the meal she's missed the most since she was arrested in the case. Calls to district attorneys in the case weren't immediately returned Wednesday. Wife is cleared of murdering her husband as he slept after telling how he raped and tortured her for days. Lisa Donlin was found not guilty of second-degree murder, manslaughter, and criminally negligent homicide on Tuesday. The mother of 3 shot her husband once in the head and 3 times in his back as he slept in 2010. The defense argued Jason Donlin had been raping and torturing her for days. A jury acquitted an Alaska woman who shot her husband 6 times as he slept, killing him, after she said the man held her against her will and tortured her for 3 days. According to KTUU-TV, a Palmer jury found Lisa Donlin not guilty on all counts after several days of deliberations following a 4-week trial. Donlin, a mother of 3, was charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter, and criminally negligent homicide. She shot her husband, Jason Donlin, once in the head and 5 times in the back with a .45 caliber handgun while he slept on October 7, 2010, before calling 911 to report the shooting. The defense argued Jason Donlin had been raping and torturing his wife for 3 days. They say he was keeping her against her will in a cabin or storage shed in Butte, about 40 miles northeast of Anchorage. Prosecutors argued the killing was non-confrontational, and they said that while medical records showed evidence of scrapes and bruises, there was nothing to indicate Lisa Donlin had been tortured. A grand jury initially declined to indict Donlin, but reconsidered after prosecutors presented new evidence. Her lawyer argued that she was a victim of domestic violence and that the shooting was justified. "Anyone, I think, would have done what Lisa Donlin did to protect herself and her children under those circumstances," said defense attorney Zachary Renfro, according to KTUU, during closing arguments. Lisa Donlin was kept in a 12-by-20 cabin against her will, unable to leave by the threat of death to her children. The Donlins married in South Carolina in 1995, and court papers showed trouble in their marriage when they were living in Eagle River in 2006. That year, she obtained a restraining order against her husband, and doctors documented her injuries. In a petition for the restraining order, she said he became enraged when she announced she wanted a divorce. "He packed his things, told the kids bye," she wrote. 20 minutes later, he came back with his 2 loaded guns. "He was trying to force me to call the police because he wanted to be shot by police officers, so it wouldn't look like a suicide." She wrote that her husband had pointed a gun to her chest before and had thrown her out of the house with no clothes. On it, an event she said was witnessed by one of their sons. She also stated that her husband had choked her unconscious. She said she didn't call the police because she was scared. "I have a feeling that he would use his guns easily, and I don't want to create any situation that would trigger that," she wrote. 2 days after she obtained the restraining order, Jason Donlin, who was a computer technician for the Alaska Army National Guard, filed for divorce, seeking custody of the children. The couple soon reconciled and were living in a small building, behind the home of his mother and stepfather. Defense attorney Zachary Renfro said that while Donlon was in jail, her 3 sons visited her weekly. He said the next step is to work on a plan to reunite her with her children. Jury deliberates Donlon's fate. Palmer, among the many things he told and showed the jury Thursday, one sentence on a slide in Palmer District Attorney Roman Kalitiak's PowerPoint presentation seemed to sum up his view of Lisa Donlon. She chose a 45 instead of the police or a divorce lawyer. Donlon's trial ended Thursday after occupying most of March in Superior Court Judge Carrie Christiansen's courtroom. She is accused of murder for shooting her husband, Jason Donlon, while he lay in bed in their Butte area cabin. Trials don't have to be this long, Kalitiak told the jury. A trial can be in a matter of seconds because the evidence has shown here that a trial was conducted on October 7th, 2010. He said Lisa Donlon weighed the evidence, found her husband guilty, and imposed the death penalty in a matter of minutes if not seconds. But she didn't have to, Kalitiak argued. When she managed to lock her husband out of the family vehicle, she could have driven to the police station. With the kids away at school on the days she said her husband tortured her, she could have called the police and had them pick the kids up so she knew they were safe. She could have gotten a divorce or gone to live with friends out of state. Instead, she shot Jason Donlon 5 times, including what Kalitiak called a coup de grace shot behind the ear. That sent a message, he said. I don't want this person to ever recover from anything. I want this person gone. Period. Exclamation. Point, Kalitiak said of the shooting. But he wasn't the only one making arguments Thursday. Zachary Renfro, one of Donlon's attorneys, argued her side. Anyone, I think, would have done what Lisa Donlon did and should have done to protect herself and her children, Renfro said. Lisa Donlon was kept in a 12 by 12 cabin against her will by threat of death to her and to her children. He said the trial wasn't about money. Despite what Kalitiak implied, Lisa Donlon didn't even know about her husband's $400,000 insurance policy. Nor was it about an affair she said she'd had with a co-worker. And it wasn't, Renfro said, a matter of Donlon arguing, as Kalitiak implied, that the son of a bitch deserved what he had coming. Whether or not I believe that, I'm not allowed to argue that to a jury, and you're not allowed to consider it in your deliberations, Renfro said. No, what the case was about, he argued, was an imminent threat. The night before he was killed, after 3 days of torturing his wife over that affair, Renfro said Jason Donlon stayed up late. All night long he's saying, tomorrow's the day. You're going to pay. You have to pay for what you've done, Renfro said. She believed he was going to kill her, but even so, she held out hope, hatching a plan to keep their 3 kids home and maybe defuse the situation. She turned off the alarm clocks in the cabin, but then Jason Donlon woke up anyway and got their oldest off to middle school. And that's when she knew. She knew he was going to do what he said he would, Renfro said. As of press time Thursday afternoon, the jury had received its instructions, and deliberations are expected to begin today. Testimony. Friends knew of abuse. Palmer, Jason Donlon's best friend, said that in October 2010, when he received a frantic voice message from his friend, he knew something was wrong. He said, "Call me because I need you," and I knew. I knew something bad had happened, Richard Sheets told jurors Friday. He tried to call back but couldn't. He said he assumed then that Donlon had hurt or killed his wife. But it was Donlon who had died at his wife's hands just a couple of days after that call. Sheets was testifying in the murder trial of Lisa Donlon. Both sides agree that on October 7th, 2010, Lisa Donlon shot her husband in the back as he slept in their Butte area cabin. Her attorneys argue that her husband had threatened multiple times to kill her, and that he had tortured her for days before the shooting. Prosecutors contend that she had better options available, that she could have left or called police and didn't need to shoot a sleeping man in the back. On Friday, Superior Court Judge Carrie Christiansen ruled that she would allow defense attorneys to tell the jury it can consider self-defense to justify a not guilty verdict. District Attorney Roman Kalitiak said he intends to appeal that ruling. Sheets said he had known Jason Donlin since 1989, when they were both stationed at Camp Lejeune, NC. As a young Marine, Sheets said, his friend would actively seek out conflict. It's a behavior that didn't taper off as his friend matured. They lived in different parts of the country, but kept in touch by phone and occasional visits. In 2007, Jason Donlin stayed with Sheets and his wife at their home in Colorado. In a conversation at the kitchen table, they talked about his friend's marriage. He told me that they were having problems, and he told me that it had become physical, Sheets testified. He told me I smacked her around a little bit. Sheets said he disapproved, but he tried to help. He lined up a job for Jason Donlin, where he worked, and told his friend to move down there, take some time, and cool off. He said that he wouldn't do that, Sheets said. Sheets' wife, Jennifer Sheets, said she had also tried to help by offering to fly Lisa Donlin and her 3 boys to Colorado. It seemed apparent from her testimony that she could see the Donlins' relationship deteriorating as the years went by. At one point, she and Lisa Donlin implemented a code phrase, bunny ears, to indicate when Lisa Donlin felt unable to talk freely on the phone because someone else was listening. I didn't witness any physical violence take place, but I did hear some things over the phone, Jennifer Sheets testified. Sometime in 2006, Jennifer Sheets said, she started to get very concerned. Lisa Donlin told her that her husband had cut her hair, raped her, and thrown her outside without any clothes. I felt that he just really didn't see her as a person anymore the way he was treating her, she said. Later, she said, Jason was a very generous person. He was a lot of fun. There were a lot of great things about him. But he had a horrible temper. Also, on Friday, Kalitiak got to question Lisa Donlin directly. Every time one of these things happened, you should have been, or were, re-evaluating your marriage, Kalitiak asked. No, not every time, Lisa Donlin said, explaining there were times that her husband promised he'd do better and that things would change. When you love somebody, you believe them when they tell you that. Roman asked about the time Jason Donlin filed for a divorce. Lisa Donlin said he'd done that as a ruse to get her back by scaring her into thinking he could get full custody of the kids with his lawyer. He told me I had no chance of winning because I had no job, no lawyer, and no place to live, Lisa Donlin said. You chose domestic violence and rape and name-calling over divorce and some financial struggling, Kalitiak asked. He said that things would get better and we would get counseling, Lisa Donlin replied. Kalitiak asked her if the Donlins were a couple that enjoyed turbulence in their relationship and if she and Jason Donlin thrived on conflict. She said they were not. Later, he asked about a possible explanation for the torture she described. In the days leading up to her shooting Jason Donlin, she said previously that her hands were bound. She was suspended from the ceiling as he whipped her, poked her with needles, and slapped her. You would agree that what you described to the jury sounds like a bondage-type situation, Kalitiak asked her. No. That's sick, Lisa Donlin replied. Donlin details the abuse of the jury during the murder trial. Palmer. While her kids waited in the car, Lisa Donlin said her husband walked her into the woods. Getting her that far had been a struggle. First, she'd tried to lock him out of the family SUV. Then, when he pulled her out of the vehicle, and she fell to the ground, she refused to stand up. He said, "If you don't walk right now, I'm going to do it right here," Lisa Donlin said Thursday from the witness stand. She said she believed her husband intended to kill her. Right there, next to the SUV, with their boys waiting inside. She said she gave up and went with him after her husband told her, "I'll have to take them out too because they can't go through their lives being witnesses." Donlin was on the witness stand testifying in her trial for allegedly murdering her husband. 2 days after the incident in the woods, she shot him in the back while he lay in their bed. Her attorneys argue she had no choice, that Jason Donlin wouldn't let her leave, and that he had been torturing her. Prosecutors in the case argue that she was not a prisoner and that she had other options better than shooting a man who was very likely sleeping. The argument that led to the incident in the woods off the Jim Creek trails began after Jason Donlin found text messages between his wife and one of her co-workers. Donlin said she told her husband she and the coworker had been flirting for 3 weeks and that they'd kissed only once. She said on the witness stand that was a lie. It'd been going on 5 weeks and they'd kissed 5 times. She said he believed there was more to it and was demanding answers. On the trail in the butte, Donlin said her husband choked her until her knees were weak and her vision blurry. Then he gave her 3 options: shoot herself, overdose on the post-surgery pain medication she'd been taking and that he had in his pocket, or let him strangle her. She opted for the pills. He gave them to me and I was taking some and he snatched them back and said, "You're not getting off that easy." Donlin testified in court Thursday. So they went back to their house. Her husband tried, though often failed, to remain controlled when the kids were around. But the next day when the children went to school, she said he bound her hands, connected them to a pulley system, and tied that to a hook in the roof. He sprayed her with rubbing alcohol and tried to light her on fire. "I kept blowing the lighter out, which made him more mad," she said. So he hit her with a belt, punched her, and slapped her. He told her if she screamed, she might get someone killed, as he would have to take out potential witnesses. In the end, he had sex with her, forced himself on me, Donlin testified, and went to sleep like nothing had happened. Donlin said their relationship had been abusive for years, starting in South Carolina, where he worked as a police officer. He would hit her, slap her, and sometimes choke her. 3 times he choked her until she passed out, she testified. A few years after moving to Alaska, he deployed with the military to Iraq. He came back, and things got worse. She tried to leave him in 2006, but he found her at a women's shelter in Anchorage, the location of which she said she'd been told was supposed to be a secret. That's why she didn't think she could leave when he was tying her to the ceiling of their 1-room cabin. "I had left before and he had found me," she said. "I had gone to a shelter where I was supposed to be protected, and it was supposed to be a secret. So having been told the torture would resume the next day, she shot him after one of their sons had gone to school but before the other 2 left." Domestic violence victim charged in spouse's death. Donlin shot husband 6 times while he was lying in bed. After initially deciding not to charge a Butte woman for killing her husband, a Palmer grand jury received new information and has now indicted the woman on charges of second-degree murder and manslaughter. Lisa Donlin, now 38 and the mother of 3 boys, shot Jason Donlin, 40, once in the head and 5 times in the back with a .45 caliber handgun early October 7th as he lay in their bed, prosecutors have said. She then called 911 and admitted shooting her husband, prosecutors say. The initial decision by the grand jury to not charge her was based in part on evidence that Lisa Donlin was a victim of domestic violence, prosecutors say. Doctors had documented injuries, and back in 2006, she had sought a restraining order to protect herself from her husband. Her claim was and is that the murder was justified, Palmer District Attorney Roman Kalitiak said Monday. Donlin testified before the grand jury, which is unusual for the target of a criminal investigation. For suspects who believe what they did was justified, the grand jury would provide a good place for them to make their feelings known or to give their side of the story, the district attorney said. Usually, police bring initial charges, and prosecutors seek an indictment within a specified number of days. In this case, there was an ongoing investigation, and a decision was made not to charge her right away, but to present it to the grand jury in the format of an investigative grand jury case, Kalitiak said. He said the same grand jury that heard the case in October revisited it in December when the district attorney's office presented additional information it had received. He said he could not disclose what that information was because the inner workings of a grand jury are secret. Court papers show trouble in the Donlin marriage in 2006 when the family lived in Eagle River. A divorce filing said the couple married on July 4, 1995, in Greenville, SC. When Lisa Donlin filed paperwork for a civil restraining order, on November 6, 2006, she wrote that her husband had been violent toward her, and that things had blown up when she announced to him the week before that she wanted a divorce. He packed his things and told the kids bye. 20 minutes later, he came back with his 2 loaded guns. He was trying to force me to call the police because he wanted to be shot by police officers so it wouldn't look like a suicide, Lisa Donlon wrote. She wrote that she was afraid for her life and his. She didn't know what he might do, so she left the house with their children. He had pointed a gun to her chest before, she wrote. He also had thrown her out of the house with no clothes on, an event witnessed by one of their sons. Another time he choked her unconscious, she wrote. She didn't report him to the police because she was scared. I'm afraid now to face my husband before our divorce process is over. I have a feeling that he would use his guns easily, and I don't want to create any situation that would trigger that, she wrote. She wasn't working at the time. She wrote that Jason Donlon was a computer tech for the Alaska Army National Guard. She was granted a temporary restraining order. 2 days later, on November 8, 2006, Jason Donlon, not Lisa, filed for divorce. He was seeking custody of their 3 young sons. On November 13th, he twice called the children's school to find out if they were there, even though he was under court order not to do that. He was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of violating the protective order, but that criminal case was later dropped. Within weeks, the Donlons were reconciling. On December 28, 2006, Jason Donlon asked a judge to dismiss the divorce case. This past summer, the family moved to the Valley. According to a small claims case filed against Lisa Donlon in July, bills were mounting for her back in Anchorage. She didn't respond to the case until November 22nd. Due to my domestic violence issues, I apologize for the lateness, she wrote. When Jason Donlon was killed, the family was living in a storage shed behind the home of his mother and stepfather, prosecutors have said. 2 of their sons were home at the time. Their children are now age 13 and under. Lisa Donlon is being held on a $100,000 bail at the Matsu pretrial facility. A bail hearing is set for Wednesday. Grand jury won't indict woman in Butte shooting. Evidence supported the claim that she was the victim of violence. Wasilla. A Palmer grand jury decided Thursday that a Butte woman who shot her husband to death last month should not be charged for the killing because of significant evidence of being abused by him over the years. Lisa Michelle Donlon, a 37-year-old, mother of 3 boys, shot Jason Donlon, 40, once in the head and 5 times in the back with a .45 caliber handgun as he lay in their bed on the morning of October 7th. 2 of their sons were home at the time of the 7 a.m. slaying. The family had been living in a storage shed behind the home of Jason Donlon's mother and stepfather, said Rachel Gernot, the case's lead assistant district attorney in Palmer. There was evidence of serious physical abuse and that she had sought assistance before, Gernot said, being cautious about what she revealed about the case because grand jury proceedings are usually kept secret. We were able to confirm all of her story. The shooting doesn't appear to have been premeditated. It was a product of the situation. Neither Lisa Donlon nor anyone else in the Donlon family could comment. According to her profile on a social networking website, Donlon grew up in Savannah, Garmitir, and later attended high school and technical college in South Carolina. Public records show she's lived in Alaska for at least 9 years. Gernot said Tuesday that the Donlons had been married for over 12 years, and their sons were all under 13. Jason Donlon had served in Iraq with the Army and had returned to Alaska in 2006. The same year, the former Eagle River resident was charged with violating a domestic violence protective order against his wife in an Anchorage court, Gernot said. The family moved to the Valley this past summer, and Donlon commuted to her 2 jobs in the Anchorage area. Gernot said one of those jobs involved working with children at an Anchorage school. Palmer District Attorney Roman Kalitiak said there was plenty of evidence of bruising and other injuries to Lisa Donlon from doctors' examinations. There was no evidence, however, that Jason Donlon physically abused the children, he said. Who killed him was never a mystery, Kalitiak said. It was never an issue of whether she shot him because she admitted to it when she called 911, Kalitiak said Monday. Therefore, the grand jury must have found the shooting justified. Her position was that she had no choice in the matter but to do what she did. Kalitiak said he's sure some in the community will judge Donlon harshly for what she did. People will probably feel she had plenty of opportunities to help herself. and will feel that since her husband was lying on his stomach at the time of the shooting, it wasn't a true self-defense case, he said. On the other hand, people who know about domestic violence point out that there are certain psychological aspects that lead victims to get to the point where they feel pretty desperate, and that their choices are minimal.